Hey guys, piaslittlecustoms here with a special 30k video. First off, I want to say thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed to me. 30k in around 4 months is incredible, and I'm completely flabbergasted. I don't really know what to say other than thank you. You're the ones who are pushing me to make all these customs and hopefully inspire you guys, so I'm really thankful, and I hope that you guys find this tutorial useful. Well, it's not actually a tutorial, but it's just a gathering of tips for you guys about customizing. So I'm just gonna tell you 10 tips that I have for you about customizing in general. I get a lot of questions on a daily basis about painting and sculpting and all that, so I just wanna kind of make this video with the intent that if you guys watch it, then at least you have a few basic tips on how to get started, or if you've already started, then maybe how to improve your customs or all that stuff. Anyway, I hope that this is useful for you, and once again, thank you so much for all the support and love. You guys are amazing, and you are the best subscribers that I could ever wish for, so thank you. I wish I could hug you all so much. But yes, let's just get to the tips, and I hope that you guys enjoy this video. So the first tip is be patient. This is both for people who have just started customizing as well as advanced people like me who have customized several hundred customs even. My tip is just that always be patient, never rush yourself to do something, because you're never gonna do your best work if you just feel really impatient and try to get something done really rushed, and just try to enjoy the whole thing. I mean, even if you paint something that doesn't look great, just take the time and fix it, because it's totally worth it in the end. And at least for me, I think the details are the ones that matter. So take your time, enjoy it, have a cup of tea at the same time, listen to some good music, and just relax and paint and enjoy it. That's my first tip, and I think it's the most important. Even if it looks in some of my videos like this is really effortless and really easy, I promise you it's only because I've made almost 500 customs. In the beginning it took me probably like 4 to 5 hours to just paint something. Like, it could take so long. Nowadays it's because I've painted so much and I know how to use my tools that it's much easier. So don't ever compare yourself to me and feel that you should be doing stuff as fast as me. If you made like 500 customs, you can compare yourself to me, that's fine, but definitely don't compare yourself to me if you're just starting out and you're wondering why you're not painting straight lines perfectly and stuff like that. It takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of practice, and as I said, I've spent so many hours doing this that it's basically my profession now. And yeah, just as I said, enjoy the whole thing and have fun with it. The second tip that I have is actually fairly straightforward. It is that you should always use acrylic paint when you're painting plastic toys. I don't have any experience of any other paints, but I know that acrylic paints adheres really nicely to surfaces that are made of plastic, so definitely use that. Don't use nail polish. Nail polish gets really tacky. It can ruin your LPS, and it's very hard to get off, so definitely use acrylic paints. I don't have much experience about different brands except the ones that I use. What I know though is that if you buy any high quality acrylic paints, I think any of them are really good. You just have to learn how to use them, because all paints are different. They have different times to dry. They stick on different ways. Some have more pigment, others have less. So just, learn how to use your paint, which is actually tip number 3. Just learn how to use all of your tools. Everything works differently depending on what brand acrylic paint you use, what brand sculpting putty you use. Just learn how to use them. Take your time. Always see what happens when you do certain things. If you use less water, more water. It really depends on everything that you're using. So learn how to use those. It doesn't matter if you're using the same brand of paint as me. By the way, the reason why I never mentioned the names is because I don't want you guys to think that it is because of the paint that I can paint these customs. It's got nothing to do with the brand, it's just a certain brand that I have learned to use over many years of experience. The reason I don't want to recommend this brand is because it's very expensive, so if you're starting out, I would never ever recommend this to you. It's very expensive, it can be very tricky to learn how to use it because they have so many different types of paints. Like, they have base paints and layer paints, and it is a long process to learn how to use them, so I don't recommend this brand that I'm using, which is also why I don't want to say the name, because I don't want you guys to go and spend all your money on it and then be disappointed. So just learn how to use your paint, and if you're using green stuff like I am, also just take your time and see how that works. Like, of course, one tip is that you should use water when you're sculpting, but you know, all different sculpting materials work differently, so just be patient. Again, learn how to use your tools, and that's it for that. Tip number 4 is actually also related. It's you should probably try to use whatever tools you can that are handy, both for painting and sculpting. If you're starting out and you want to make perfect circles, for example in your LPS's eyes, I recommend using a dotting tool. I've never used them myself because I didn't really know that they existed until I had already learned how to paint circles in the eyes, so I don't use a dotting tool unless I'm making polka dots on something. But I definitely recommend using one, and I also recommend using sculpting tools. You don't have to be picky with what you use as long as it's plastic or metal. I've never used any wooden tools on my sculpting, so I can't recommend that, but at least, you know, just get any tools that you can that will, you know, you can even experiment. Actually, it's a good tip to just experiment and use whatever you can, see what happens. If you're sculpting something, you can always fix it if it doesn't work out, but just be experimental and try using different tools, and you'll see that it's going to be very interesting. And yeah, that's another tip for you. So the 5th tip is something I never thought I would say. It is use a sealer, at least if you're planning on using your LPS in videos or doing something that involves touching them a lot. So the reason why I've never used a sealer before is because I don't really touch my LPS very much. I just keep them in a shelf, they sit there nicely, they are display only items, except my mascot, obviously, because I do use her in these videos. What I learned now, last time I went to buy paints, I actually saw a sealer that I wanted to try, and the seller told me that because there are fats on your fingers, just natural fatty acids that are on your fingers, they can ruin the acrylic paint if you touch your LPS a lot. So using a sealer will prevent that from happening, and it will keep your paint job intact. So when you're using a sealer, I recommend reading the instructions very carefully. In the beginning, I would totally recommend that you seal very carefully, spray from a distance, take your time, don't put a layer that's too thick because you never know what's going to happen. I personally don't have any experience of sealers except the one that I'm using now. It is by Citadel. It is called Purity Seal. So far, I think I would recommend it. Like, I actually sealed this mascot, and you can't really see any difference on what it looked like before and what it looks like now. It is very expensive, or at least I think it's fairly expensive, so there might actually be some other sealers that are much better. I've heard people use Mod Podge, never used that myself, but I could recommend that if you find out how to use it properly. Always be careful with it. You might want to use it on an LPS that's not so precious to you in the beginning, so you know what you're doing, and you learn to use your tools. Do that. So another little tip for you about sculpting is that you might want to, again, be patient and sculpt in layers. Don't try to sculpt too much in one go, especially if you're doing something really, really complex. Take your time, build structures before you actually try to sculpt the final detail. Like if you're doing huge antlers, you might want to start by putting steel wire into the head of the LPS and kind of go from there. You might have seen me use various different things. I've used steel wire, I've used toothpicks, I've used Q-tips, lots of different things. Just use whatever you can find that could make your sculpted structure a little bit more solid and stable. So that is one tip about sculpting. Another little tip for you about painting is actually about sculpting as well. Just make sure that you have plenty of water at hand, especially when you're painting. If you have a custom that's going to have dark colors and light colors, remember to have separate glasses with water for those. Just don't always remember to have your brushes clean. Use as much time as you need on getting your brushes completely clean, and then always have clean water at hand. Also, always make sure that your hands are clean when you're painting. Someone commented once that my hands are always nice and clean when I'm painting in these time-lapse videos, and that is only because I take the time in between shots to actually wipe my hands so that they're not dirty. That's because in the past I have many times had a little bit of paint on my fingers and I've ruined the paint job by touching the LPS, and then the old paint has gotten stuck on the new one. So I don't recommend that to anyone. Keep your hands clean, or at least if you know what you're doing, then you know you can do whatever. But in the beginning, I definitely recommend just having paper next to you and wiping your hands in between layers so that you don't get any of the old paint on the new paint. Another little tip is to always challenge yourself. Always try to do something new, but then also don't challenge yourself too much. Especially in the beginning, I don't recommend you taking on a huge task of doing something super complex. Just do things in small steps. So start off with something more simple. If you have something that's really ambitious, go for it, but don't be disappointed if you don't have the sufficient skill set yet at that point. You can always go back to an LPS custom that you've ruined or you haven't really made, that you're completely happy with. Just always go back to them and fix them if there's something. If you notice that you've become a lot better, you've improved, you can always go back and fix it. And here's actually another tip that's related to it. You should decide as an artist what it is that you want to focus on when you're making LPS customs, or actually anything. Do you want to be a perfectionist from the get-go? Do you want to get all the details, all the sculpted parts, seams and everything completely perfect? Then, you know, you have to know that that takes time, and then give yourself that time to do it. If you're not terribly picky about how your customs turn out, especially in the beginning, if you cut yourself some slack, then you know that you can also just do your best and move on to the next project. It's totally up to you. For example, for me, I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to sculpted parts having like my fingerprints on them or a paint job being completely perfect. For me, it's more about finding those little touches that make it individual and make it mine. And that's usually in the details. So that's what I do as an artist. You don't have to do the same thing. People are completely different. Just, you know, find your own thing and stick to that motto, whatever it may be, because that's what makes you individual as an artist and shows that you have your own style. And finally, a tip that I should have just said in the beginning when I was talking about paint, I recommend that you use synthetic brushes for your acrylic paint. Especially when you're painting details, synthetic brushes are a lot better because they don't really, they don't become so brittle so fast. I don't know if that's the correct word, but they kind of stay in shape a little bit better than anything that's made out of natural hair. Also, don't be afraid to replace your brushes. If you notice that something has already gone bad, then it's best to just replace it rather than try to use it over and over again, especially for small details. I replace my detail brushes actually probably like once a week or something. I use the older ones for other surfaces and things, but for the really small details, I replace them very frequently. So you might want to do that if you're painting a lot and you notice that your fine detail brushes have become bad. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys learned something new, or at least got a few tips, and hope you found it useful. I'm sorry that it wasn't structured very well in this video, but at least I tried to share a few of my tips with you. And I just hope you guys have a lot of fun customizing or doing whatever art it is that you like to do, and I'm really thankful that you guys let me do my thing and share it with you. So once again, thank you so much for you 30,000 amazing people out there who are supporting me and being so loving and wonderful. And yeah, that's it for this video. See you again tomorrow. Bye!